Hey guys, it's Pastor Brett with today's daily Bible reading. As always, encourage you to opt in. findme.com/Bible reading. You can opt in and get these passages and these videos delivered into your email inbox bright and early every single morning. Today, I want to look at a passage in Hebrews chapter 11. And you might know this chapter in the book of Hebrews if you've spent time in the scriptures. This is what is often called the Hall of Fame of Faith. It lists and spells out the life of faith that so many in the Old Testament, so many of the leaders, of the heroes, of the people that we look to in the Old Testament of having a great faith story or how God worked in their life. And it just lists them out. But the passage we're going to look at today in Hebrews 11 is actually the very end of that chapter, where it doesn't give all the accolades and all the details of the faith journey of the people that it discusses. It more moves in a rapid succession through a number of leaders. And we're going to be introduced to one leader in particular who is the focus of this coming weekend's message. So let's look together Hebrews 11 verses 32 through 40. Here's what the author of Hebrews says. What more shall I say? I do not have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskin and goatskin, destitute, persecuted, mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. Since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Now, at the beginning of that passage, the list of names, one name in particular, Gideon. That's where we're going to spend our time unpacking his story this coming weekend as we continue our series, I See in You. And it is a powerful, almost at times funny, right? Laughable, ironic story of God seeing in Gideon something he did not see in himself. Literally, when God first comes to Gideon, he is hiding in a wine press, doing a farming task, separating the wheat. And as he's hiding from a foreign army in this dug in, basically under the ground, this dug in wine press, the angel of the Lord speaks to him. Hey, mighty warrior. There's two things going on here, right? One is, I think there's some irony. He's hiding from the enemy and God's calling him a mighty warrior. But I also think it's revealing something about what God saw in Gideon that Gideon did not see in himself. As the author of Hebrews spells out, doesn't give us the details of Gideon's story in this context, but there's one description that fit many of these names, and I just love it because I think it gives us the perfect picture of what's happening in Gideon's life when he hears this, here's what God sees in him. And Hebrews says it like this, whose weakness was turned to strength. Gideon, like any of us, he had his weaknesses. He had his failures, his faults, his fears. And yet God turned the weakness of Gideon and the weakness of Israel in their story into his strength. You see, as we unpack the story of Gideon, we're going to find out that again and again, God told him to send away troops, to send away the troops of Israel, so that when they went to battle, there was such a small group, so few of them. It was going to be one of those moments where they said it was only God. In fact, the military strategy that they employed in that moment was comical. It was ridiculous, right? They brought horns and torches. That's not a military strategy, right? You don't go to war with horns and torches. But it was an opportunity for God to say, hold on, you see weakness. You see that you are a fraction of the size of the other army, that they have better technology and more training and rigorous development of their troops. All you see is your weakness, Israel and Gideon. But I'm going to turn your weakness, these small numbers, this lack of materials, this lack of training, I'm going to turn that into strength because I'm going to be the one leading you. God saw in Gideon, God saw in the nation of Israel in that moment so much more than they could ever imagine. What did he see? He saw his power. He saw his ability to work through them, not because of their ability, but because of their availability. And that's what I want us to ponder today. What weakness in your life might God use as a strength if we would simply give up this notion, let go of this notion that we have to have the ability and simply say, God, I am available. I have the availability. I think all of a sudden, those temptations we have, God might use them when we're honest and vulnerable with them to encourage somebody else who's facing the same thing. The pain that we've experienced, maybe in suffering, God's going to use the comfort He's used to comfort us with to comfort someone else. Our story of failure, our story of fear, God is going to use that to bring hope and strength to someone else. Not because our story is worth telling, but because His is. Because He meets us in that weakness. He meets us in that frailty. He meets us in our limitations. And He makes up the difference. To the point that we say, only God. This, like with Gideon and Israel, is an only God moment. Only God can do what happened when I simply made myself available. And I went out there and I served. I went out there and I shared my story. I went across the street and I got to know my neighbor. And God did amazing things with it. Because God, community, God sees in each of you a leader. Someone who He can work in and work through to influence this world towards His goodness and His beauty and His grace and His mercy. And that is what our journey is all about. So today, I want you to just reflect on that for a moment. Let go of the idea of your ability and really ask in your heart about your availability. Is there something you're holding back from God? Is there a part of your life? Is there a part of His call in your life that is maybe it's hard for you to trust Him with? Consider that for a moment. Think on that. And ask what it would take today for you to give that over to God. God bless, community. Cannot wait to connect with you this week.